Hello, New York. It's good to talk to you, Fred Hopkins, Henry Threadgill, representing the Group Air.
Hello there, Minnesota. Same here. We're really glad to get a chance to relate to the audience before we actually get there.
In terms of relationships with an audience, you certainly stratify and you certainly abstract traditional jazz and take it into new and untried ground, and you've been doing that for a long time. What tradition did you grow up in that influenced your music? Fred, you're first.
Okay. Well, the tradition I grew up in was a mixture of all the music that was being played at that time.
And would you mark that time in terms of years and what the dates were?
Oh, well, I was born in 47. So, all of my early experiences was happening within my neighborhood. And on a typical day, I could walk down a block and hear blues, orchestral, jazz, pop of that day. And being exposed to that much music kind of has led me to playing all the music that I hear.
Does that mean you were listening to maybe Jimmy Yancey and Bertha Chippehill and other people?
Well, to be honest with you, I probably heard their music and didn't know that was them at that time, you know.
It was just floating through the air.
Yeah, just being floating through there. Thank you.
And you really got it by osmosis.
Well, it's a combination of working on it, too, because I had some great educational assistance in terms of music. And that's the great teachers of Chicago, such as Walter Dyett. Also learning so much from the bandstand, with a lot of the really great performers in Chicago.
What brings to mind DuSable High School?
That's the one. You know, it's very interesting. The more I travel, the more I meet a lot of the musicians who, were in his band, and it's just amazing to keep running into these guys, you know.
He was a marvelous force in the development of Chicago musicians, wasn't he?
Oh, yes, he was, one of the most well-known. I think the strength in what he actually made you do, because he took the time to relate to each individual in the band, and what was required to get the message across to you was his method of dealing with it. I think that's a very special talent, you know.
How did he deal with you?
He had to get rough with me.
Why?
Well, I was one of those guys who had a little talent and had to be prodded along, to practice and be there on time and all these things. He didn't take any stuff off anybody, so he dealt with me very harshly.
And you came around then?
Well, I'm still here, so I think all this stuff actually worked. It's been proven correct.
Fred, you're a bassist, and were people like Oscar Pettiford any influence on you?
Oh, of course. That question comes up a lot, who influences you? And it's almost impossible to name everyone, because it's not only just your instrument, but it's also from all other musical family, but he and, Ray Brown, you could talk about Jimmy Blanton, Paul Chambers, Fort Mingus, and it's so many. That's an endless list.
Henry Threadgill, I want to just ask if there's really any parallel to the way you and Fred had to approach your whole process of education. Fred said he had to endure some discipline, but as you were growing up, Henry,
I had to deal with discipline. I mean, to go into art, one must go through discipline. I think that he referred to something that might have a little bit more to do with his character at that time. You know what I mean?
I do understand.
Yeah.
His sense of responsibility.
Yeah, I think that he was getting some very high advice. You know what I mean? From someone that knew quite a bit. And teenagers don't really like to be told that much about themselves. You know what I mean? This guy was very well-educated man, and he didn't really talk down to you as a child. He gave you some of the higher facts of life, very high facts of life. And sometimes I think young people, it might be beyond their reach at the time, but if they deal with it, their life will change,
Well, I certainly understand.
Right, yeah, he's an educator.
And a molder of character at the same time.
Exactly, molder of character. You see, there you hit it, right there. See, that's That's a very well taken point, and that's very well understood by people that know something about it. What you just said right there, molder of character.
Well, I think of, students like Johnny Griffin and Johnny Hartman who have come out of DuSable, and the character and stature of so many of the music students that came from that high school that it had to be some sort of leadership like that generated those kinds of artists.
Exactly. Great. You have to have great teachers to produce, to bring that out, to develop the talent in students,
You came from Englewood High School, and that had some of the same influence, didn't it?
Yeah, they had a long type of history in terms of musicians at Englewood High School. A lot of good musicians had previously been there. When I got there was a lot of some of the senior musicians were incredible people that are famous right now in the industry. They had been like a good music program there. A lot of good opera singers too went there.
So it wasn't necessarily confined to concert band or jazz band or...
Oh, no.
You really dug in, and you dug the European tradition as well as other traditions as well, Afro-Cuban and...
I've always kind of been more interested in music. I mean, I had areas where I wanted to specialize in, but music, I like good music. I found it unfortunate in my life when there were periods when I was younger when I could not get into certain kind of music. I almost had blocks on certain music, you know what I mean? I had opinions that did not allow me to proceed into a particular area of music,
Would you cite an example of that?
Look, for instance, like country and western music when I was a kid. It was not popular in America. It was unpopular in the music industry. It was unpopular among white America. White America was ashamed of it. I was fortunate enough to get through that barrier. You know what I mean?
And share in its heritage?
Yeah, and get an appreciation for it,
Well, certainly country blues and all of that tradition.
But country, what we call hillbilly music. That's what it used to be called.
Sure.
Yeah, hillbilly music. Wasn't called
bluegrass and...
That music was like, nobody wanted to, it was like in the closet, They were trying to keep it in the closet. It was embarrassing for look like middle-class America.
Well, much in the same way that the label stamp on a record prior to World War II, race music.
Right, exactly. Mm-hmm. So I was thankful to get through those kind of periods, you know what I mean? Because if you're into music, that's what you're into, you know what I mean? All of it. You have to take it from wherever it comes from, That's the way I see it. I don't see a doctor closing down except to any information concerning medicine. The healing of people, he's in the wrong profession. That's what I figured out for myself. I had to be open to all of it. I had to allow myself to deal with it. Everybody's still faced with that in any profession. When you close down, that's not helping you, that's hurting you. That's not going to make you a better artist.
Today, Henry Threadgill, how do you deal with the one medium? There are several mediums, but the one medium called the phonograph record, in terms of a hurdle and a barrier, but also the other side of it, the open channel and the exposure. How do you deal with the mentality of the bottom line of the record business and the art form that you're involved with?
That's not a simple question to talk about. It requires like a bit of conversation. But let me just say this about it, that I don't really want to beg the question, but I want to just open the question up a little bit further into just the musical part of it. The making of records is a challenge, and what we do, we try to think of the idiom in which we're getting ready to create something. What we're going to put it in. Is it a live performance? Is it a performance in a washroom? Is it a performance in a saloon? Is this a videotape for little kids? We try to organically create things in the direction for which it's supposed to be. Now, that business level that you emphasize, or how do we deal with that? Well, just like everyone else. We deal with it the best we can, with the best sophistication we have, with the best expert advice that we can get under the circumstances that we live under. That's what we do. I can't elaborate in terms of any detail. You know what I mean?
Henry Threadgill, thanks so very much.